welcome back. Our last guest is a singer, composer, and musician whose sounds combine rich Afro-Indigenous cultures and musical landscapes, walking the line between cumbia, vallenato, rancheras, jazz, and pop with a New York City edge. Her live shows move audiences with messages of spirit, social issues, and love. And here to share more, we welcome singer, composer, and musician Alea.
Hey,
Yay!
thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, what a treat you are going to be for our viewers today.
I'm
Yeah,
excited.
yeah. My only thing is, and perhaps we should have had a conversation before having you on, is that you didn't come with an instrument because I love these instruments that
Yes.
you work with, right? So, I mean, perhaps we can maybe talk about one and we can show an image of it because you use your folklore, like ancestral, spiritual background to fuel your fusion, and I find that really admirable.
I love bringing my roots to my music. It's what gives me like substance. I feel that it's what nurtures really not only who I am, but what I become on the stage. And it became a very important part of my journey to bring instruments like the guacharaca, which I perform sometimes, and it is part of vallenato.
Is that
Yeah.
the instrument that you performed with at the South Bronx Culture
Yes,
Festival?
definitely. That one. I also use the maracones, which are for cumbia, native for the north coast of Colombia, and also the wasa from the Pacific coast of Colombia. So all of those instruments plus the arrangements that we do, we keep in mind having not only Colombian roots, but Mexican roots, and trying to honor Latin American repertoire in general in a way that feels authentic, that feels like we're proposing something as well, trying to bring it here to the Bronx as well.
Yeah. But we kind of skim through vallenato,
Yeah.
and even though I mention it, I would love for our viewers to have a better understanding of what vallenato means and what it represents.
Vallenato is a genre of music from the north coast of Colombia. It is unique there. Like country music to the United States, Vallenato has its own instrumentation. It's a whole cultural thing. Not only are people they like to sing it, but it's like a way of living. I feel like it's a lifestyle.
Ah, interesting.
It's amazing, but it's a genre that for many years was mainly played by men. So I've been trying to kind of give it my own take as a woman, writing also vallenato, but writing many on genres as well, or writing what I call Latin alternative.
Right. And so that's interesting that you bring that into the discussion because we are living in a day and age, and I mentioned in my previous interview the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And while it is a trending term right now, it is a way of really approaching art and approaching our social like conversations, our social like intentions, because for a very long time the gender of being a woman has always presented itself to be secondary.
100%. And that is something that I bring to my performance all the time. It is part of who I am that became the reason why I released an album like Alborotá, which actually means rowdy, and it's in the feminine word.
Yes,
because that's what
let's talk about that word, because I know it's very personal for you.
I was called an alborota,
And define it in English.
It's rowdy. It means that you're too much, that you're being, you need to tone it down.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So I wanted to re-signify this word that was thrown at me a lot.
Why? Because it impacted the way you were developing.
Exactly.
Internally, going back to the discussion earlier of self-esteem.
Exactly.
And this time we're talking from the perspective of language.
Exactly.
And how that repeats itself in your head and impacts the way you think of yourself.
Exactly. I'm always holding back, thinking I'm being too much.
Right.
I need to, chill. I need to give people more space because I'm taking up too much space.
Right.
And it's all the contrary. You need to take up your space. You need to be able to say say what you need to say, to be vocal about your needs, to also represent and not be afraid of like going into your roots and seeing who am I and what can I bring to the table. So that's what I've been doing with an album like Alborotada, is bringing all of those songs representing Latin America, but also feminism. And my way of representing that is through songs.
And it's lovely that you're saying it not solely in through music, but in your way of putting it together, right? Because we discussed instruments,
Yes.
we discussed, I guess, folklore music, and basically it's like a dismantling of structure while honoring its origins.
100%. It's never about just bashing everything and saying this isn't working anymore. I think it's about honoring where we come from and understanding where we are today. It's time for a little bit of a change. We need to kind of redirect this, right? So that women are more in the table, so that these genres do represent women as well from now on, and so that everybody feels like they can be part of the conversation.
I actually want to take dismantle back and fill it in with redesign, because I think that's a better term.
Yes.
Right? It's not
Yes.
it's redesign.
Redesign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like, wait a minute. We don't need to dismantle it because it already existed. It was there, and we already know and we respect it. Pero at this particular time, in its inclusivity, it needs to be redesigned if
Exactly.
it's going to actually invite that.
Exactly.
And you're creating that.
I'm creating that space and I'm holding that space for other women who are also seeing what I do and that are inspired to also do it in their art or in what they're doing. Like, for example, these hoops were inspired by an artist called Litsi, and she wanted to do something that represented that empowerment, and she called these her Alea hoops for her jewelry design. And I'm just saying that as something that that happened to me in the most random situation. And that's how I realized, okay, I'm doing something good here. And I wasn't even expecting that now.
Right. Wow. Yeah. You got to take that in deeply, right? Because everything just kind of happens for a reason. And then there's that consciousness of just understanding that it's bigger than you.
Exactly.
And while your expression is through music and through your songwriting, it's really because what I guess left me in awe over you, aside from the way you sing and the way you present, is how important it is for you to bring light to instruments and or cultures within Colombia that really wouldn't be spoken of unless there's somebody talking about it.
Exactly. I think more than saying, oh, I play Latin American folklore, I want people to understand, oh, this comes from vallenato, this comes from currulao, this is a cumbia, this is bullerengue, this is inspired, and of course it's not traditional, but I am using and I'm trying to put that in my music so that people are curious about it. I mean, do you feel represented? Do you feel like you've heard this before? Yes. It's what you grew up with or what you heard on the radio or the artists that you like growing up, but they're here in a city like New York.
And so going back to the redesign and certain music really being represented by male figures and or that gender dominating a certain style, how is it being received by them now?
You know, I have been very much impressed with the response I've received because I thought I was going to get so much backlash, and I did get a bit of that. You know, there were people that are like, what is she doing? And why did you change that? And, you know, who are you? You know, like to kind of come in here and decide to change things around. But then I got the other opposite end of the spectrum. When people, even from my homeland, where I didn't think it was going to be accepted, were sharing my songs, like Aire Guajiro. They were sharing this like to their people and feeling proud that somebody, a person, a woman, was using that and making something out of the genre at the other side of the world. You know, I just think that that's beautiful, that they feel represented.
Right, it's evolving.
Exactly.
It's its own evolution. But again, once again, going back to structures and honoring, you know,
Yeah.
because you know it can get a little touchy when you're dealing within the Latino community.
Yes, it can.
It's like, what are you
Yeah.
reinventing for? Así se hace.
Sí.
Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
And so, You guys are in for a treat, so you definitely have to stick around to listen to her perform. But I do want you to share how you're able to combine all of these different genres and yet still find a way to identify and educate in the process, because you really design a fusion, but they each all kind of like have their own distinct highlight within the way you present it. I'm really in awe over you, if you didn't notice.
Thank you.
Yes.
No, Rina. This has been for me like a journey of discovery as well. I've been going into, every day. When I study a new genre, when I decide, okay, when I'm writing a new song, I said, oh, this is sounding like a bullerengue, but I want it to feel like it could be a little bit more modern. Like how can I bring it to that space? So it is something of designing and redesigning and kind of finding patterns that suddenly just feel like they always belong together because they're cousins. Basically, all of these rhythms come from our motherland, right?
I like that.
From Africa.
Yes,
They
yes,
do.
yes.
And especially West Africa for us, and how they come, they're based, we can see them all from jazz to blues, right? All the way to Central America, South America, and all the rhythms in 6/8 that suddenly have a bunch of nods that just connect. And that's what we've been finding when writing these songs. And I say we because I haven't been doing it on my own. This last album was produced by Sino Padilla. But it's always been a curiosity of mine as well to bring that to my music in a way that feels respectful, but that also feels like I'm proposing something new. Yeah, educating a bit, maybe, but without trying to be too educational, I guess.
Right. But it's there. It's
Yeah.
there. It's there in your writing. It's even there in the way you describe your work and yourself. And so I thought it was important for us to mention that because you make it your business.
Yes.
To make it distinct, right? And so before we go, I do want to acknowledge Mireya Ramos, Sonia de los Santos, Renee Ghost, and I say that because I know you've worked with all three, and we worked with all three this past June, and for me, you're like the next generation, and so I just wanted to know what that's been like for you coming under those wings.
Oh my God. It has been an experience that I wasn't expecting in New York. I was told that I was going to be alone. New York was going to be brutal. It was going to be hard. I'm an immigrant, I've been here for 10 years now. But I started going to school in Boston, and then I came here to New York, and everybody was like, what are you doing? New York's going to be too hard. And then I found this community of incredible, accomplished, very hardworking women.
Grammy winners.
Grammy winners.
Yes, I forgot to mention
Grammy
Grammy multiple, I believe. Yes.
Sonia de los Santos, Grammy nominated.
Hello.
So I'm just thinking, all this Renee Ghost with like all her influence in the Latin American and in the United States as a feminist and somebody
and the LGBTQ
community
because she's really big.
A very big activist, and how they've influenced my music and my mission to keep having a very like clear objective in my music. So I think that not only have they influenced everything that I've been doing, but I feel supported. I feel like I can lean on them. They are just incredible people, and they've been some of my biggest mentors since I got here. So yeah, very lucky.
Yeah, well, I wanted to make sure we shouted them out, and we also forgot to mention Juancho, the male in the
Oh my God, Mr. Juancho Herrera. We gotta mention Juancho.
Origen Collective.
Origen Collective, very important. Juancho Herrera has been an incredible friend and a huge ally. I cannot say more. Yes.
Wonderful community.
Incredible.
Wonderful. And thank you for bringing it here. And you guys don't go anywhere, because when we return, Alea is going to perform for us after the break. You don't want to miss this.